Bonjour à tous, bienvenue dans un nouvel épisode de Robert Spotlight.
Robert Spotlight, Robert Spotlight, Robert Spotlight, Robert Spotlight, Robert Spotlight.
NFT Factory, c'est un projet beaucoup plus large, qui ne se résume pas à l'art.
2 ans que je travaille sur la question de la représentation des artistes femmes.
J'ai travaillé avec des artistes sur la curation, sur le French Touch.
Je suis la cofondatrice de Bauhaus et la NFT Factory.
Je suis un artiste slash hacker dans le monde des NFT.
Bienvenue dans le show.
Welcome everyone. Welcome on a new episode of Robert Spotlight. And today, Robert Spotlight, Lawrence Lee. Welcome on the show.
Well, it's great to be here with you, Robert.
Thank you to be here. Lawrence, could you introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
Well, that would be almost everyone in the world. You know, it's amazing. we all are tribal. We're members of the world community, but still we're only known to the people locally. Some people have told me I'm famous, and I say, well, you know, that fame is relative. Anyhow, my name is Lawrence Lee. I'm living in Tucson, Arizona. I've lived here for most of my life. I'm 75 years old. I'm an NFT OG 2018. I started working with the guys at Super Rare when it was, they were still calling it Pixura. But I have made my living as a professional artist for almost 50 years. I started showing in galleries in this area 50 years ago in 1972. I created the first children's book ever to be illustrated in color on a computer. This was in 1989, and this was in the days before, well, it was 8-bit colors. So I had a total of, my palette ranged 256 colors. There was no such thing as anti-aliasing. So you had jaggies in all of your illustrations. And when I got to the end of doing the illustrations, nobody knew how to get them out of the computer and onto the printed page. They were just developing color separation technology in the software at that time. And this was in the days before Photoshop. I'm that old, pre-Photoshop. I used a program called Pixel Paint, and I've actually had the opportunity to talk with the fellow that developed that within this past year. And let's see, I'm mostly a painter. I made my reputation painting Indian, kind of iconic Native American figures. And then after 50 years of doing that, I was kind of full up and tired of it. So I went back to painting landscapes. And, you know, it's been interesting. I want to relate this a little bit to NFTs because I got into a gallery in New Mexico, in New Mexico and Colorado. And just after I was accepted into the galleries, COVID struck. And so my income from painting at the easel just went into the basement. And NFTs supported my art. They paid my studio rent for 2 years. And then as more and more people got involved with NFTs and the competition became stiffer, I ended up not doing as well with my NFT sales, but by that time, the galleries had started to reopen. So my income now comes mostly, once again, from my pushing paint around a canvas. So I've had a lot of experience as a painter. I've had a lot of experience doing digital work. It's been very interesting to to see the world of NFTs and how they've developed, and to talk about the kinds of things that might be in the future. So there you have it.
Okay, perfect. And could you say to us who introduced you to NFT and blockchain, blockchain and NFT?
Yes, actually, I don't know. I'm constantly looking to expose myself to new things, and being, you know, my first computer was. It's a Radio Shack. It was a TRS-80 level 2 16K, when you had to load your program from an audio cassette. That's where the data was stored. And this was in 1980. So I've been messing around with computers a long time. And as part of that, I'm always looking to learn new things. And I came across an announcement somewhere that there was this company called Pixura, and they were doing this thing with digital art. Well, because I had been using digital art for my own amusement for a long time, I had been interested in finding ways to monetize it, because there really weren't in the early years. You had to make a giclée or an indigo print or something like that. Just the digital work itself, there was no market for. So I contacted the guys at Pixura, and those were John Perkins and some of the other movers and shakers at Super Rare. We kind of held each other's hands. I gave them a lot of unsolicited advice about what artists would want in their program. And they very kindly listened to me and put up
like what? What kind of?
You know that well, things like art royalties for artists, and just the kinds of things that you see. I really wasn't clear about how smart contracts work. I was still trying to really get a feel for it, because I grew up in a non-digital age. I used film cameras, 4x5 film cameras, and I actually bought one of the first digital cameras that was available for the general public, and that was made by Kodak. So anyhow, I got to talking to these guys about what I assumed they would be, the kinds of things I assumed they would be addressing in their contracts. I was basing that on contracts I had used as an artist for decades, and of course, it wasn't the same thing at all. So I think they learned some of my concerns, and I learned some of theirs as well. And it's really been interesting to watch them develop over the years.
Okay. And except the royalties, did you recommend other improvement from an artist perspective?
Other what?
Improvement or feature?
Well, I've used... you're talking about the what I used to create with?
No. I'm talking because you say that the initial question was, how did you enter on the NFT space or blockchain space? So you say that you saw an advertisement about Pixura, which
yes.
is super rare today. And you say that at first you talk with them and you offer them some...
unsolicited
advice. Yes, that. So my question was, except royalties, did you ask something else?
Well, they helped me through the whole process of creating a wallet and understanding a little. I knew the basics in a very general way about how blockchain was supposed to work and some of the promise it held. and they just kind of held my hand as I was going through the process. It took several months for me to get everything working. So it wasn't until I think December of 2018 when I minted my first 3 pieces. And I've worked very closely with Super Rare and as well with Known Origin. Those guys have been very good at trying to be leaders in developing new technologies and very thoughtfully crafted smart contracts. I think they've been on the leading edge with that, and it'll be interesting to see what they do now that they're a YouTube property.
Okay, perfect. And so, Super Rare help you jump on the NFT space. So it's 2018. What happened since then?
Well, it was kind of an arc. You know, they say, I actually, must have been 3 or 4 years ago, somebody working with Dada ran the numbers and showed very clearly that there are 2 things that have to be working for you if you're going to be successful. And they were talking about in marketing art, but it applies in almost everything else too. First thing is you have to be first. You have to be the one of the first people in the space to make a name. And then you've got to hold on to that name. And the only way to do that is to have the second component, and that's luck. You got to be lucky. You got to be first, and then you got to be lucky. If you're lucky, you will stay at the top of the leaderboard pretty much no matter what you do. Below you, then there are other tiers of artists, and that's kind of where I've been. You know, I know some of the guys like Coldy and Matt Kane and Xcopy and some of the there are just all kinds. It was a very small, intimate community back in those earliest days. And, you know, some of the artists doing work in those days, you kind of had to look. Well, everybody was very sincere, but I don't think any of us knew what we were doing. We were trying to find out how the technology could work for us. We're trying to be sensitive to what people, potential collectors, might want. So we would kind of run through these periods of doing one thing or another. For a long time, it was, glitch. You got to add glitch. If you don't have some glitches in your video, you know, it's not appropriate for the crypto art space. So we all found the things that people were experimenting with on the web, and we glitched things up until everybody got sick of it. And then we'd move on, everything was new. Everything was new. All of the things I had learned about marketing art, almost all of them, I had to throw out the window. And I recognized early on that there were storm clouds forming because I understood the power of market dilution. In those early days, there were perhaps 100 maximum of artists that were actually minting NFTs and selling enough that they were interested in continuing to mint and deal with all the problems that the developers were having. It was kind of the Wild West. And I don't know whether this is true or not, Robert, but maybe you can help me understand. You know, the guys at Super Rare, I think, were very sincere in their wanting to develop a viable marketplace for digital art. But by the same token, they had to watch their bottom line and figure out how they were going to survive until they had enough money coming in to really support the business. So they, in order to get funding, they had to show potential investors increasing numbers. You know, that's been the way all of these startups have been working. You know, you get in, you work fast, you break things, all that, but you've got to have data that shows some numbers increasing. Well, about the only metric that the platforms had any control over was how many artists they were onboarding. So they spent all of their time trying to bring more artists in, get them involved. And that was great, but that left aside the other vital component, which was the collectors. And they weren't onboarding collectors at nearly the same rate that they were onboarding artists. And this meant one thing. It meant the market was going to become diluted, because when you started out with perhaps 100 artists and 10 potential collectors, and then suddenly you had 1,000 artists and 15 potential collectors, and then 2, 3, 4, 10,000 artists and 100 collectors, your market is entirely different. What it meant was that people that were interested in pursuing NFTs or digital art as a career were fighting an uphill battle because they were always there. Every day they woke up to stiffer competition for the same wallets. And it was obvious that the end result of that was going to be that very few of those artists were going to be able to make a living doing it. Everybody was going to have to become an amateur because, you know, the internet is the best thing that's ever happened to artists, and it is exactly, horribly, the worst thing that could ever happen to artists at the same time, one and the same time. It's the best and the worst because it opens up the whole world to people that are interested in collecting. It crossed boundaries. Boundaries don't exist anymore. And that's great. But it also means for the artists that they're no longer competing with a group of people in a small region, a small part of the world, perhaps a few hundred artists. Instead, they're competing with a world full of artists living in different circumstances. So my basic studio rent is $500 a month. It's a small place. It's costing only about $1 a month per square foot. But I have to come up with that money to pay that somewhere. But I'm now competing with people in countries for whom $500, if they got $500, it would be a life-altering event. You know, they might be able to quit one of their jobs. They might be able to afford decent housing for their family. Whereas for me, it's just the rent for 1 month at my studio. Well, that's you see that in manufacturing, why jobs move around the world, kind of all headed toward the lowest bidder. And sadly, that's kind of a little bit of what I'm seeing in the world of NFTs and digital art right now.
Okay. And so what would be your workaround? What do you have in mind? I will assume that as you have made that perspective, that situation, you know, you already thought about, okay, from that, what I'm doing?
Well, I have had I've had some interesting conversations with people on Twitter because we've talked about, well, what I have been doing has been related to, I've been trying to play catch up because I was not first and I was not lucky. I'm kind of in that middle tier, and I'm having to be really sensitive to the audience and sensitive to the new tools that are coming along, and recognizing at the same time that I'm an old guy that has to struggle with all of this, you know, because I wasn't born with an iPad in my crib. I've had to learn it the hard way. I've never had a course in computer programming. And so just everything, it takes extra time. But my real interest, Robert, here you go. You get to hear it first. My real interest in this whole area is not necessarily NFTs. NFTs are a financial tool for some people. It's a way to create a marketplace that appeals to some other people. But NFTs are not the end of the road as far as I'm concerned. My hope for NFTs is that they will legitimize all of digital art. Legitimize it to the point that the people that have for the past 50 years supported me as a professional artist will want to, they will have the knowledge about the market and the strength of personality to begin to include pure digital art into their collections. Most of these people, you know, they tell me time after time, oh, Lawrence, yeah, I know digital is nice, but I like to have a canvas. I like to be able to smell the oil paint. And so it's been tough making inroads with them. And I've been hopeful that all the hype around NFTs would, in the end, result in a viable market for digital fine art. Forget the crypto component, forget the NFT component. Those are tools, and the young people today are figuring out amazing things to do with those tools. But you're going to have to not stop with NFTs, because it's so easy for NFTs to become nothing more than a way to flip assets. The art becomes and remains little more than the asset underlying an investment. Now, that's what we saw early on, and that's what unfortunately led to things like the Bored Ape Club, when the art is, well, it's not art. It's this digital icon manipulation of stuff to create a set number of works, 10,000 pieces, with enough hype behind it that you can kickstart a market, get people investing in it.
Yes, but here you, so if I get it right, at first you were talking about crypto art, mm-hmm. and now you are more talking about collectibles. Yes. So it's not kind on the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what we saw was all of the hype. You know, the news cycle first was following NFTs and digital art. Great, we're headed the right way. Then along comes things like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and all the attention got sucked out of the art, the attention on art, and was refocused on this collectible business. And that had several negative consequences. One was that, and oh man, the discussions I got into on Twitter about what art is. I had people saying, well, art is whatever I say it is. And I'm an artist because I say I am. And there are no rules in art. And if there are rules, there shouldn't be any. So we'll burn the whole system down. Burn down the gatekeepers. Oh, we don't like the gatekeepers because they didn't show my work. Well, you know, that's true. I've been there. But gatekeepers for wealthy collectors become very important because these wealthy collectors don't have time to spend all day trolling Instagram or looking at what's available at Super Rare and other places like that. They need somebody they trust to go out and find the diamonds for them. And then because they know their tastes. I want somebody looking for the kinds of things I like. And then they come say, okay, Lawrence, here, we found these guys for you. One's in Nigeria. We got another one in Azerbaijan. And there's this Japanese fellow that's doing some amazing things. You're going to love them all. Well, that's great because I got more money than time. I'll pay this gallery to do that work for me. But the gallery is a gatekeeper that I've hired. If you understand what I'm talking about.
Yes, it's clear. I just trying to see where you want to go. Because at first the initial point was about you saw an issue about an oversupply on the market, and basically from that point you were trying to explain what kind of worker you wanted to approach, and it's why I'm listening very carefully to try to see where you want to go.
Well, let me see if I can help. A lot of what I do, Robert, I do because of my experience pushing painting on canvases and selling those. In order to be successful as a paint pusher, you have to early on in your career make some very hard decisions, because very few artists have the range of, say, Pablo Picasso. And they weren't, or they're not lucky as he was. You know, all of those guys in 1900, the beginning of modern art, they were together and looking at developments in physics, and that was guiding their art. Cubism was based in part on ideas of quantum physics. So I've had to learn my experience. Well, the kind of decision you have to make is you have to go all in on one genre, because if a gallery is investing money in you and you're painting, say, buffaloes and horses and cavalrymen, well, if they are investing money in advertising your art and they started to sell it, then if the next month you come in with 18th century sailing ships, they're going to be really annoyed because they've put all their money into this other look, these other subjects that you're carrying. So what I had to do, I'm living in the Southwest. If I wanted to paint 18th century sailing ships, I should be in another part of the country. What people are interested in when they come here is American Southwest, and they associate cowboys and Indians with that. So I had to decide that I was going to be a contemporary Southwestern painter. And when I did that, that was the end of my creativity, because I had to produce work for a particular audience. They had expectations of exactly what it should look like. I knew what a Lawrence Lee should look like. The gallery owners would call me and say, Lawrence, I need another easy sell. I need another painting like this one or that one. And I would do it because I had bills to pay. I had a mortgage. And I decided after all that time, here I am, old as 2 days older than dirt. And I decided I'm tired of doing this thing that I've been doing for 50 years. I became a millionaire selling artwork. But here I am hating what I do because I've been copying myself for 30 years. So I started painting landscapes and started doing other kinds of things. And that informed what I do digitally because I refuse to do to myself now what I did as a painter. And some of the most successful people doing NFTs are the ones that you see it and you say, oh, that's an X copy. That's a this. Oh, Coldy did that because they have created a look and that has become almost their entire look. That's a sacrifice that I made many years ago as a painter, and I refuse to do it again. So my work remains experimental. I am all over the place. Sometimes I'm doing portraits that are based on the work I did as a professional artist, as a painter. Other times I'm doing really interesting video pieces where I'm creating virtual audio voices that are playing in the background. They're kind of mysterious. It's almost like what's in this person's head. You see, you're seeing what that person might see for 20 or 30 seconds. So I have a great range of things. And the one that we chose to focus on here is the Monsters series. I started doing that simply because it was fascinating. I started reading about all these boogeymen that parents have come up with to scare their children and decided that would be a fun thing to work with. And so I did a whole series of those, but never could. It took me so long that I missed my best marketing opportunity. And so it's just kind of languished at this point.
So if I get it right, your response of not settle to any market is to stay true to your artist self and to be experimental, basically to not deny any intent that you want to try.
You listened to me very well, Robert. You got it. Just perfect.
Okay. But why do you think that being experimental can be seen as a... So if I get it right, my understanding is also that, but maybe I'm wrong, that being experimental can also be at your detriment, meaning that you will do things that the market don't want.
Yes, absolutely. And it's scary, but it goes against everything I learned about marketing art and marketing myself as an artist. This short hair is relatively new to me. For most of my career, my hair was prematurely white. So by the time I was 40 years old, I had this white hair and it was down to my shoulders or longer. And that was a marketing tool, because it was really easy for my clientele to remember me, and they could see me 100 yards away and say, oh, isn't that Lawrence Lee? So, but anything you do then, whether it's that portion of your personality, whether it's a logo or whether it is a consistent look, well, one of the things, so the long white hair was a great thing until it wasn't. And the problem was that I started getting old, and pretty soon I looked like an old guy with long white hair. I looked like Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson instead of a fellow that was able to compete with the 20-somethings in Europe and around the world. So for me, I have, in some ways, Robert, I have fought tooth and nail against some things in digital art, in NFTs, but something wonderful happened that is changing me even today relative to this whole environment. And that is the really wonderful creative artists finally found us. You know, for 2 or 3 years, it started out with people, some were artists, some were interested in coding, some were interested in money. And then when you started getting into collectibles, and people decided, oh, they can do anything they want to and call it an NFT and sell it and make a fortune. The complexion of the whole environment changed, and it wasn't until I'd say the last year that you have begun to see this flood of exceptionally good art coming to NFTs. I wish these guys had been here 2 or 3 years ago, because there wasn't that much good art available. And now there's so much, you could spend all day looking at it, being amazed. And I am, and I just hope that these young guys that are doing this stuff, I hope that they're successful, and I hope they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I want to see them have as much success as possible. You know, there's a famous American, a guy that painted Americana. His name was Norman Rockwell. And he did all these paintings of wholesome apple pie American scenes, you know, the family at the dinner table. And he was an illustrator, illustrating for Post magazine. And he became a beloved figure. And you could recognize a Norman Rockwell from a mile away. But he was criticized for using impermanent materials in his work. They wouldn't last more than 100 years and they'd start to fall apart. And he said something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Let the next generation paint its own paintings." Well, you know, I was young once too, and I get it. I understand. There comes a time when you want the old guys just to, I don't know, retire to Florida or die because you need to get them out of your way. This is now your world. It's the world of people like you, Robert. And I just hope that in that process, you young guys understand that we are where we are now because of a lot of history. And it's important to study that history so you'll have a better idea of the kinds of challenges you're likely to face in the future as you become masters. You guys are going to be creating all the art that's available in 20 years. I hope you do really well. I won't be around to see it, but I hope you can learn from all that has happened and take the best ideas from the world of the gatekeepers and the galleries in terms of understanding a clientele and knowing the kinds of services you can best provide so that they return and buy your work year after year after year. That's the way you can have a real career.
What would be the best idea? So, if we have to move on something more practical, And because I get your statement and I get your like the state of the union for you, state of the market. And but if we want to be more practical, what someone being aware of everything that you say till this point should keep doing?
I think, you know, I've been amazed at the number of shows of digital art there are mounted all around the world on an almost continuing basis. I hope that you guys can move from having to doing most of your work in public spaces to working directly with the gatekeepers. Find the galleries that want to be leaders and help them do that by sharing your knowledge with them about the entire range of digital art that's available as you know it, the kinds of tools that are being developed for the artist and for the collector, all of the advantages you get by having a smart contract associated with the work in terms of provenance. Because I think there's always going to be a desire that people have they want to fill their homes with things that are important to them, but many people want it to not only reflect their own desires, they want it to reflect the community in which they live. For instance, that's why I can't paint sailing ships and make a living in Tucson, Arizona. This is a desert town. I have to be sensitive to that and understand that most of the people building new homes here want at least part of their art to relate to this area, this geographical area. And so I just hope that you can take your creativity. I mean, the tools you're developing already, what is it called? Art Vive, where you can you can take your phone into a gallery and aim it at the paintings, and it will then show you the artist at work, painting the painting or signing it in
so
video.
You mean augmented reality?
Yeah, all of those things. Those are tools that the galleries that exist don't understand. They need you to teach them. So, and you need to teach them how it's going to be important for them to meet all of the needs of their collectors, not to make them do the hard work of going out and buying a display that's going to show the art well and showing where to hang it in the home and how to handle the lighting and how to develop playlists. You need to teach them how to do that, because you guys are the ones that are going to really be in touch with all of those things. The old guys, you know, we're not stupid. we were young once too, but those of us that want to learn can really use your help. And I think when you can develop those kinds of skills so that you can work not only with your contemporaries on these shows in public spaces all around the world and semi-public spaces, when you get to where you can also work with galleries and show them how they can increase their profits and be leaders in the art world by understanding, taking the time to understand digital art and making it a real part of what they have to offer. Did I get off the subject again? I do that.
Not really, but I would say that it's not off the subject, but it's more like you pivot a little bit, because at first it was because saying this thing, it's not like an advice for an artist. It's an advice for someone knowing the technology, knowing the blockchain technology, and that can help the gallery, the art gallery.
when hopefully the artists understand all of that technology too. I think that the artists themselves are going to, should position themselves as leaders. The people that are developing the technology ought to be talking to the artists first and last.
So in your point of view, when you said that to have someone exposing the opportunity to art gallery helps then become the leader of the space, you were talking to an artist?
Yes. Well, now that's assuming that the artist is experimental and has their hands on what's going on in the field now. I just assume that they do. It may be that, some artists they're threatened by money. They don't want to, or they say they don't want to have anything to do with money, or they don't care about money. Well, that's fine until you want to do art for your livelihood. I mean, when that's what all you want to do with your life. So I hope that artists know enough about the technology to be leaders. But if not, then they need to partner with some people that do, the developers that do understand it. And if you had a team of the artist and the people creating the technology go to the gallery and say, Mr. Gallery owner, we can increase your profits tomorrow, and here's how we can do it. We will put together a package of hardware and software that will do these things. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to increase the options for your clients. You're going to be bringing in new clients and develop a whole new revenue stream. If you had the tech guys and the artists go in and tell that to an art dealer and then be able to support them through that process, buying the equipment, using the equipment, creating playlists, the whole business, then you've got a really winning business. And I hope I live long enough to at least grab onto the coattails of that, because it will be a momentous change in the art world.
Okay. So in fact, if I get it right, what you are saying right now, it's someone need to be the, how to say that, to be the ambassador for traditional art galleries, to be involved on the digital.
Yeah. And that's not to say that the other things, the non-gallery things, are not worth doing. No, it's all worth doing. But traditional art galleries have learned some things about why and how people buy art, and about where value exists in that whole ecosystem. And they're learning it on Twitter and Telegram and Discord now. It's access to the artist. It's being included somehow in their process. A lot of traditional buyers, in fact, for many years, I would be stunned when I would be at a party given by one of my collectors and hear them say, "Oh, George, come here. I want you to meet my artist." Well, there's a sense of ownership. If they're investing thousands of dollars in artwork for their home, they want to have a personal relationship with the artist. So I think it's really important. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The galleries know something. Take what they've learned and use them as an experiment, so to see how well digital art will perform in that marketplace. Think about what people that are suddenly find themselves, they've got a startup and they're suddenly making a lot of money and they're building a new house. What are they going to put on the walls? Well, you better be there to tell them.
Okay, get it. Did there is anything else that you see that as important than that?
The thing I tell my collectors, my collectors of traditional paintings, easel paintings, a lot of these people have been collecting my work for decades and they've run out of room. And they say, oh, I'd love to have that painting, Lawrence, but I've got too many paintings down. I don't want to build an addition. So I go up and I say, oh, but you've got a 64-inch flat screen TV right there. Let me show you how you can continue to collect art. You can have relationships with artists, and you can, the size of your collection no longer will depend on the size of your home. You know, about 3 years ago, I bought one of these digital displays called a mural canvas. And it's not large, and it was about $500. And it's one of the best things that I've ever done because I get to look at art I love all day long. Art that I can't afford to buy, art that is in museums that I couldn't buy even if I could afford them. My NFTs that I've been purchasing little by little over the past 4 or 5 years. There is nothing about it that is not pleasurable. I see it throughout my day, every day, and stop and gaze at that piece, the particular piece that is showing, and I think, wow, I still love that. And I'm still trying to figure out why I love it. So I think I'm getting off the track again, but I think there is so much potential for all of art and digital art in particular. I think it is being driven by NFTs. I hope that the financial people that are involved in the art market and the blockchain don't kill the golden goose in their desire for profit. I hope the artists are valued as much as they should be. And I'm really looking forward to what's next. I cannot even dream the kinds of dreams your generation is dreaming, Robert. That's a big responsibility, but think about that, because 20 years from now, you're going to have made the world you're living in. You're not going to be able to blame the other guy. You know, I blame my generation for some terrible things, but I'm going to die, and your generation is going to be next. So watch out for what you do.
Yes. If I get back on what you said previously, when you say someone need to stood up and go talk to art gallery, may I ask why you don't want to do that?
Why I personally don't want to?
Yes.
Because, well, I have actually. I've advised a couple of galleries on what they can do, but I don't think I had the energy required that you usually only find in the young. I don't think I had enough of the kind of vision that has been driving the development of smart contracts and that has been driving AI technology and generative technology. I've been, of course, focused mostly on what the artist can do by hand because, well, that's how I grew up and that's the stuff I love. But that doesn't mean the kinds of things that other people love aren't valid. Yeah, so where am I?
Okay. And when you try to contact an art gallery, what was... What was the result?
Well, they didn't listen to me. They listened to what they were seeing in the newspapers. So their understanding was very limited. They were trying to understand the technology without asking the right people. That's the young people. They were asking me. Well, I could, I could speak their language, but I didn't have the energy and excitement that your generation should have related to all this. And that's why, somehow maybe there needs to be a bridge. You go from the 20-somethings, have them providing energy to the 30 and 40-somethings that have the mortgages and have been doing things. They're investors in the technology, or they're coders that have developed the technology, and have those generations work together to inform the elder generation, who probably has most of the money. And that's the biggest thing that I discovered about, with the galleries I've talked to about this. They don't understand how that it's going to require an investment in physical equipment and in technical expertise. It's not going to be a get in it quick, make a lot of money and get out. They've got to be serious about it. And what I would love to see is some kind of white glove service. So I could go into a gallery and I would be presented. I would see the traditional paintings over here, traditional paintings over there, and right in front of me is this huge screen with a playlist that I could change. That the owner of the gallery would walk up to me and say, Mr. Lee, I'm glad you're here because we have a new show for you. And they get their iPad, tap, tap. Let me bring up a playlist that we created just for you. And then get them excited about being able to see works they already have that have been digitized, mixed with works they could have digitized, and then say, if you like this, we will put together a complete system. You don't have to try to figure out what you want. You don't have to learn all the technology. My crew will arrive tomorrow in our white gloves, and we will create a system in your home that will feed your lust for art for decades to come. And all you got to do is write the check. I'd love to. That's how it ought to work.
Okay, so basically you just pitch a startup idea.
Oh, sure.
Right now.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Perfect. So I take it. So I'm going to show the artwork of a monster stamp.
Okay.
Before ending the interview, it's that one. Boom. So it's your current project.
Yes, it's kind of an ongoing project.
Yes, ongoing.
It started with the one on the left, which is Chupacabra, which is a mythical beast that I believe was first theoretically spotted in Puerto Rico. It spread into northeastern United States, then into Mexico and the Southwest. Chupacabra means something about goat eater, something like that. And so it's one of the things that you use to scare your neighbors or your kids with. And after I did that, I thought, well, I wonder what kinds of traditions exist in other places around the world. Started researching, and there are just all kinds of both benign and evil spirits out there that people have conjured up to scare their kids. And this also then led to the creation of the second one from the left, which is a Russian boogeyman. And I developed that into 2 pieces of art that I've used to help raise money for Ukraine. But the others, you can see how, even though they're all faces, stylistically, the only thing that holds them together is the stamp format.
Yes.
They look entirely different, and that's because I was just, I make them up. They're kind of just out of my head, and I watch them develop. So I'll draw something, and that'll lead me into the next thing. Just a way that art develops for any artist. And I never know. I rarely have a goal in mind, and I have no idea where I'm going to end up. And that's what makes making art fun again for me.
Okay, so if I get it right, you read boogeyman story around the world. You feed that. You feed your mind with the story, and after you come up with the painting.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
And some of it is, you read the descriptions about some of these beings, and you start to think about which ones of those would I most easily be able to create a compelling image of. Because, if it's a kind of an evil fairy, I suppose I could do that, but that's, as you can see, kind of not where my work is going. So I never know where it's going to end up. And that's the pleasure of it. And that's why I'm considering it an ongoing series. Nothing gets an artist working like sales. So, pretty much the way everybody has to work. And if there develops a group of people who enjoy these kinds of things, I'll make more of them. But I have lots of other kinds of projects going on too. And I refuse to become overcommitted to any one of them.
Okay. Did all of them are on non-origin, or maybe it's located somewhere else?
Lordy, I think I put them, yes, I believe they're all on known origin. It's been a while since I've been having to go. One of the galleries at which I show told me about a month ago that they wanted really large paintings. So I've had to focus on that instead of the digital art. But yeah, I think they're all on known origin. We probably don't. Yeah, we don't have time. I have another great story for you about digital art, but I'll save that for the next interview.
Okay, it's up to you. Okay, perfect. It was a great discussion. You presented your view, your concern about the oversupply of the market and what some clever, let's call them like this, clever artists should be doing, like a smart move. You also pitch a startup idea, and you presented your monster stamp kind of ongoing project. So
yeah, so that and that startup idea, that's nothing I want to do. I don't have the energy for it, but I sure hope somebody does that, does it right.
Perfect. Did you wanted to talk about something that I didn't offer you the opportunity?
I'm one of those guys that uses 10 words when one would do. You better not make that off.
Okay. I take it back. One question. So, would you be able to recommend? So it's a section called on my show Pas Décisif. So it's kind of in France. It's when you play soccer and the striker make a goal. Pas Décisif. It's the last person making the pass to the striker.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, what do you want to see on my show, and which question would you want me to ask him or her?
Now say that last part again. What if would I do what?
Which other person would you want, someone that you know, would you want to see on my show, and which question would you want me to ask her or
Have you had Mattia Cutini?
No.
I've known him from probably 2018, and he is one of the most genuine and helpful guys in the NFT space. I've seen him tutor people that are just getting in, and I would like you to ask him I would like to know if he ever gets feeling like he should completely switch gears. He has really developed his a great personal look through the stamping kinds of things that he does, and he's a very thoughtful, creative, helpful guy. And I would just like to, I'd like to know if he sees himself changing dramatically in the next 5 or 10 years.
Okay, perfect. So just to be sure, it's Mattia Cutini. It's
yes.
This person?
Yes, that's
okay.
him.
Okay, perfect. It's great. So thank you very much for your time. I will contact him. If you can, if you know him,
yes.
If you are able to warn him that my team is going to contact him to be able to set up an interview that will be very helpful for us.
I will do that.
Yes, so whenever you want, we can set up a follow-up to let you present another story.
Okay, great. I've always got a story.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Lawrence, and we see we see later on an email, maybe probably.
Yes. And thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure to be here. You've been a very good interviewer. In spite of my wanderings, you've kept me focused, and that's the kind of thing I need. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye, Lawrence.
Bye.
See you.